I'll tell you the truth. I got an email telling me that somebody was going to make a phone call to me, and the phone call didn't occur for 6 days, so I had a lot of time to wonder what he was actually going to say. I had to gather statistical data over several days' time before I came to a firm conclusion about what it was that I was going to learn. When I was an undergraduate, I studied behavior the way people used to do in the 30s and 40s. Behavior without asking about the mind. It's very empirical. And then I took a course there where they told us how sensory mechanisms work, how the eye works, how the neurons transmit signals to the brain in the eye. And then I started studying cognition. And I was like, well, wait a minute now. If the sensory systems use neurons to process information, why doesn't the cognitive system use neurons to process information? And so I'm reading the literature of cognitive psychology that was very popular in the early 1970s when I was first going to graduate school. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not the way I think about these things work. So I started to reference it back to the way neurons work even when I was still a graduate student, even though that wasn't what people were doing at that time. If you look at somebody who says a threatening phrase to you, even if they say it in a pleasant tone of voice, you know the meanings of those words, and that can transmit itself into an immediate emotional reaction. It's not like you have to think, oh, what's the meaning of that word? You don't look it up as though it's in a book. It activates this feeling of fear, right? Or this feeling of the emotional response. And it's like your experience wires your brain to react to the inputs that you receive, and that wiring is what we call connectionism, essentially. It's the knowledge is in the connections. I sometimes like to think about it as though it's an orchestra. So each neuron in your mind is a particular player in the orchestra. The orchestra doesn't have a single conductor in this case, so maybe it's like a large quartet or an orchestra that knows the piece even if the conductor's not there. They hear each other play, they respond to each other's notes and find a way of collectively producing the chord or the passage of music, which is the overall experience. So all the neurons are part of that experience at the same time. The PDP approach may have been hot and then controversial and then traditional and kind of old guard. It's coming back now, but it's only one of many, right? There's many different approaches out there, and I think you're going to see lots of exciting representatives of these different fields coming forward and winning the next Heineken prizes, for example. The creation of this prize, I think, represents an important trend in recognizing the value that this kind of science has and the role that it's going to play in the future. So that was certainly one of the, I was, of course, very flattered and pleased, but also just on behalf of the science.